Today we're going to be replacing the clutch master cylinder in a 2005 Ford Mustang GT. First, you want to start by moving the clip that's on the side of the clutch line going to the master cylinder. It can be much easier access to remove these two bolts holding on the AC receiver dryer. That allows much better access to both lines going to the master cylinder. So I chose to show you which fasteners to remove with the pedal assembly out of the car because it's much easier to see. So to start out with, you're going to remove the pin that holds the master cylinder to the brake pedal. And it comes out, it should just have a little clip and a cover on there, and you pop it out real easy. Next, you have two bolts that hold the top of the pedal assembly to the top side of the dash. Next, you'll want to remove the four fasteners that hold the pedal assembly to the master cylinder. The last thing holding the pedal assembly on should be these four clips. These two on the brake pedal, just you can unplug and untwist out of the assembly. These ones are a bit harder to get to, so I just chose to unplug them and was able to get them out without any sort of problem. To actually remove the master cylinder from the pedal assembly, it's just held on by these two Allen bolts. Now moving on to the bleeding procedure. What I'm doing here is called bench bleeding. Bench bleeding is where you have both ends of a hydraulic component, usually by hose in this case, connected into the fluid that you're going to be using. And that way you have the input and the output in the fluid, and you just pump it up and it pumps all the air through the system, and eventually all the air will come through the fluid and come out the top, and you'll be left with a component completely full of fluid. So you can see all the air bubbles going through the tube right there. And as I keep pumping it, you'll see less and less air bubbles get through there, and it's because it's getting bled out of the component. Now unfortunately, since we have to remove these lines to reinstall it back on the car, we're going to get some air back in the system, so we're still going to have to do a final bleed, but this just helps to get as much air out of it as possible so that we have less work to do whenever we're actually bleeding. Once you get the master cylinder bench bled, it's time to just reinstall everything the same way it came out. So put all your bolts back in and go ahead and put your switches back in because we shouldn't have to come back down here. So go ahead and get everything functional, and we're going to start the bleeding procedure to make sure the pedal doesn't stick to the floor. Now, since this car doesn't have a bleeder at the slave like every other car ever invented, we have to use this rubber stopper, a barb, and a vacuum pump to remove all the air from the system. So you'll want to go ahead and measure your master cylinder opening and then go buy a rubber stopper and put a brass fitting in it so you can use a cheap vacuum pump like this and pump it up to about 20 inches of mercury, making sure it holds pressure. And while it's holding at 20 inches of mercury, go into the car and pump the pedal so that you're working any trapped air in the system back into the reservoir so it can be removed by the vacuum pump. Repeat this process a few times and your system should be completely bled and you should have a solid pedal.
So, if this video helped you out, let me know by leaving a like. And if you'd like to see more content like this, go and subscribe. See you guys next time.